What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talker. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, some would say interesting day. Some would say newsworthy, plenty to talk about. Oh my gosh, what is going on type of day. And I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here. The Pittsburgh Steelers have reopened their quarterback competition heading into week 7. Why? Because, well, they're good. They're really good, but they're not great. And Mike Tomlin is looking for great. Meanwhile, the day started with the news we were all waiting for. Davante Adams is off to the New York Jets. What's to come with it? What are the next options? Where do the Pittsburgh Steelers go from here? That's what we should have been talking about. We still will, but obviously, man, did the headlines get just a bit crazier before we got on here. It's Tuesday, which means Overreaction Tuesday, episode 3 is here, and we are very excited for it. And it's a beautiful one here in the Berg. Nick, it's been a day, my friend. It's been a good one. How you feeling?
I mean, how can you not feel excited to talk football right now, considering all the craziness that has happened? I'll call this it's a Tomlin Tuesday, but it's an asked and answered Tuesday. We got the answers to a lot of questions. What's going on with the quarterback conversation, even though, Mike Tomlin, as non-committal could be. I told you before the show, that was 30 minutes of him just redirecting questions like he is Roger Federer at the U.S. Open, just sending them right back your way, not giving you an ounce of anything in return. And then, of course, all the wide receiver news, not just Davante Adams, but Amari Cooper going to the AFC East as well. So it has been a crazy Tuesday around the NFL and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, you got some answers. Were they the answers people wanted? Probably not.
No, I don't. I don't think so. I think there is an argument, and we will dive into it, and we will start with the quarterback competition, but I'll lay this out first. As Tomlin says, we will reopen the quarterback battle. We will have Russ take first team reps, which he didn't actually say that. He said Russ will practice. There will be consideration of him starting. And then every other question was, I don't really have the answer to that, including, is Russ going to take first team reps this week? I don't know. Haven't decided yet. He might start, but we're not gonna promise you that he's actually gonna take any first team reps throughout the practice week. Just like you said, whole lot of talking, whole lot of nothing. So it's time for us to break down everything that's going down. I'll start with the message that I just tried to get out before I went on this little rant there. I went back and watched the game last night, and I really dove into the Steelers and Justin Fields because I knew this day was coming. Like, I knew today was going to be what it was. I didn't know for certain that it was going to turn out the way that it did, but I knew today was going to be where we are right now. And I wanted to make sure that I had my hands on all the film, that I was able to sit down and have a real understanding of what Justin Fields has done, so that I didn't come on here and just spew some nonsense about, oh, well, Justin Fields is 25 years old and he's the future and you have to do this. And at the same time, I didn't want to come on here and say, well, Justin Fields stinks and here it is, and not have anything to back it up. Justin Fields has looked very impressive at times this season. Very impressive. And if you watch just at a glance, Justin Fields doesn't look too bad. But if you really sit there and dive into this film of week 6 against the Las Vegas Raiders, it's a tough one for Justin Fields. It's a tough one. And I'm not saying that the argument should be made that he should be benched. I still think there's a very good argument for him to be on the field, and a very good argument that he is the right option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I do think that you have to bring into account that week 6 was a lot more rough than it looked. And I get it, 32 points. But there were moments where you watched this and went, Justin, man, this is not good, and you need to be better than this. Now, that being said, we'll dive into everything and where we currently stand with this competition and where we think the outcome will come, plus what we believe the outcome should be if we were the ones making that call. We'll start with what's going to happen. So the Pittsburgh Steelers have reopened their quarterback competition. Russell Wilson will take reps this week along with Justin Fields. I know that Mike Tomlin did not have a clear cut, yes, he will take first team reps, but yes, he will take first team reps. Mike Tomlin will likely decide the starting quarterback Friday afternoon after practice. So anybody who had plans, me and Nick included, who were saying, oh man, nice, easy Friday afternoon. Nope. We'll be there getting the news, running with the news, and then jumping on here to talk about it. Obviously, that is when the Steelers will announce their quarterback. And then the big question, what's going to happen? Nick, I know what's going to happen. I think you know what's going to happen. But I'll ask you first because I'm going to go and do a long spiel here. Who's going to be the starting quarterback in Week 7 for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I'll put it this way because I want to make it more complicated than it needs to be. The combined age of the starting quarterbacks is going to be 75, not 65 on Sunday, because I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson. And I think anybody who thinks otherwise just has not been paying enough attention.
Yes, this is Russell Wilson's job. I will say this. This is a Mason Rudolph classic Pittsburgh quarterback competition. That's what this is. This is a Mike Tomlin will juice it up. He will say everything he needs to say to the public to make sure that he looks good in the eyes of Justin Fields and the eyes of the fans and the eyes of the people who do not agree with this situation. But Russ will take 95% of the snaps. This will be Russell Wilson's offense. This will be Russell Wilson preparing to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers with a hint and a splash of Justin Fields in there, who knows 100% that he has already lost this job. That's where the Pittsburgh Steelers currently stand. This will be exactly as it's been in the past. I mean, Kenny Pickett goes down 2 years ago, or last year, excuse me, and it's Mitch Trubisky versus Mason Rudolph. We're going to have a competition. There's no competition. Mason Rudolph took 3 first-team snaps that week, 3 of them. And, I mean, I get it. Mason Rudolph at the time was not Mason Rudolph by the end, but we knew what was happening. The Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Kevin Dotson lets it slip before the summer, and all summer long, Mike Tomlin's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Everybody knew what you were talking about. Everybody knew what Kevin Dotson was talking about. There was no real competition. That's what this is. This is we'll save face by saying it's a competition, but this is Russell Wilson's job, and the Steelers will proceed forward with Russell Wilson as their starting quarterback. I'll ask you if Justin Fields should be the starter, but I think I know that answer, so I'll ask you this first. Do you think there's a situation on Sunday where the Pittsburgh Steelers utilize both of these quarterbacks? Because Mike Tomlin sure made it sound like there was a possibility they were going to.
Is there a chance that they do that? Most definitely. I mean, when you talk about, or when you see Mike Tomlin, talk about how much he loves Justin's athletic ability and what Justin's athletic ability has done for them. And whenever he was asked whether or not, Russell can do similar things to Justin, he straight up said, no, he can't. He can't do what Justin does with his legs. He admires that part of Justin's game, and he recognizes the value in that part of Justin's game. So do I think that they're going to try to? Yes. We've talked about it very briefly. Do I think they would succeed in doing that? I don't think I have faith that this offensive coaching staff can successfully implement a 2-quarterback system going into Sunday.
No, it depends on where they go with it. And it's going to be very predictable. And that's where the only issue in my head stands. Like, I don't think the Steelers are in a situation where if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none, because I look at it and say, if you utilize it correctly, you could get a lot out of Justin Fields. Like, you could get a lot. You could utilize him on third down situations where you need 3 yards and you're saying, screw it, we're playing option football, and running a play like they ran on 4th and 1 where he has the option to pass, but really he could just run around the corner if that's what needs to be. You could do the same thing in goal line. But again, it's going to become very predictable. Justin Fields is on that field. Oh, okay. I wonder what happens. I wonder if they're going to run the football. I wonder if Najee Harris is actually going to touch the football. No, he's not. It's going to be in Justin Fields' hands. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers offense will live and die off of what Justin Fields can do on that play. I don't think it's the worst idea. I do think it's going to be so predictable that the amount of times you could actually use it will be limited. I also think that gimmicks are not good in the NFL, and eventually this is going to run its course, which is not what the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking to do. But Tomlin made it clear as day that this was going to be a 2-quarterback system. Russell Wilson will lead the way. He will be the guy. Justin Fields will come in here to utilize his legs and go from there. Now, the important questions. What does Russell Wilson's leash look like if he has any? Is there any chance that Justin Fields ever starts a game for the Pittsburgh Steelers ever again? Or did the Pittsburgh Steelers just ruin this? And what happens when the Steelers struggle because Russ is not the guy for X amount of weeks? Do you go back to Justin? Is it over? Do you just jump ship and say we screwed up? And at the end of it all, if it doesn't work out, if this just goes right down the gutter, where does Mike Tomlin stand at the end of it? I'll start with the leash. I believe personally, Russell Wilson's leash is all season long, that essentially it doesn't exist, that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be inches away from the postseason or missing the postseason before they decide to make a change and go back to Justin Fields. Once Russ, and I've said this many times before, once Russ takes that starting job, it is nearly impossible to put Justin back in. Why? Well, to answer my second question of, is Justin ever going to start a game for the Pittsburgh Steelers again? Probably not. They probably look at him and he probably looks at them as, well, we had a good run. This was fun. We gave it a shot. But chances are I'm not going back out there. And really, I don't want to go back out there because you just benched me at 4-2 with 10 touchdowns and 1 interception. That's what you did. I mean, that's not a team that shows much faith in a kid, and that kid shouldn't have much faith in that team. So I don't believe Justin Fields is the future anymore. I think that's over with. And I believe that Russell Wilson, unless this team is literally desperate to make the playoffs, he is not taking a seat on that bench the rest of the season. Russ can burn this ship to the bottom of the ocean if he wants to. Mike Tomlin's going to sink with it because he made the decision, and he knew that decision was coming the entire time. I'll ask you in case you feel differently. What's Russell Wilson's leash? Excuse me. And does Justin Fields ever start a game for the Pittsburgh Steelers again?
I think the best case scenario for the Steelers in this situation, which let me start off by saying I don't think it's a good case scenario to be holding a quarterback competition a month and a half into the season, but that's where we stand. The best case scenario and the most reasonable scenario in my eyes after seeing this a couple hours ago in Tomlin's press conference was you have 2 weeks until the bye. You're playing 2 teams with losing records on your home field before the bye. And I understand that Mike Tomlin for the longest time has wanted to see what does Russell Wilson look like in this offense. He wanted the answer to that question. And we knew, like a dog on a bone, he was going to get the answer to that question.
Yes.
If I'm the Steelers and I'm dead set on trying to see this with Russell Wilson, I say, here's your 2 weeks, put on film what you do in these 2 weeks. And by the bye week, you need to have a quarterback. And whether that's Russ, whether that's Justin, the decision needs to be made by the bye week going into that second half hellscape of a schedule. That's the most, I would say that makes the most sense to me from where we're at.
Yeah.
But do I think that they do that? No, I think that the leash is extremely long for Russell Wilson, even though it shouldn't be.
Do you think that the Steelers are going to go into week 8 if they announce Russ as like, hey, this is still open, we don't know who's going to be the starter in week 8?
I think there's a chance if he doesn't go out there and dominate. I think it's the same thing as we were talking about with Justin, but I think it's a little bit less contingent upon performance because I think Justin would have had to go out there and look like the second coming of Peyton Manning for them to say, all right, you're the starter. But I think if Russ doesn't go out there and shine against a Jets team that, let's face it, has a defense that will likely overmatch the Steelers' offensive line,
yes,
then I think that they'll be in the same position and say, all right, well, we're going to try to see Russ again in week 8, but we're not going to name him the starter of the future or the starter of the rest of the season. I think that at the end of the day, they need to take this into the bye week at this point because you saw what you had in Justin and you had a 4-2 record with Justin. If you go 1-1 with Russ over the next 2 weeks against these 2 teams, depending on how it looks, there still needs to be a conversation.
It is like I laughed there because my brain immediately started thinking, the Pittsburgh Steelers are about to have an unofficial starting quarterback for the entire 2024 season. They're going to go 17 weeks of Mike Tomlin is going to walk to that podium 17 times this season and say, yeah, guys, I'm just not ready to make that official announcement yet. We're going to leave the door open. I'm not here into hypotheticals all season. We're going to be here all year long talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback situation. That is hilarious. That's hilarious to think that we are going to get that every single week from Mike Tomlin. I like the situation that you've laid out of the bye week. I think that's a good one. Do I think it's realistic? There's a part of me that says yes. There's a lot of me that says Mike Tomlin already knows this is Russ. And next week, no matter what, the Steelers will move in the direction of this is Russell Wilson's job, and it will remain Russell Wilson's job. I think Russ could sink the ship, man. I think Russ can go 0-4 over the next 4 games, go fall to 5-6 or 4-6, excuse me, and hit that back end, hit that really tough spot in the back end. I mean, now you don't even get the buffer. You had the buffer of Washington. You don't even get the buffer anymore. So you could find yourself heading into, I mean, you get the buffer of Cleveland and maybe Cincy, but you hit that back half of Baltimore, Philadelphia, Kansas City, like you have nothing there. And I think Mike Tomlin might send that team into there no matter what the abyss is looking like, because Russell Wilson is that guy. If this does not work out, and we'll move on from quarterbacks after this because there's still a lot to talk about. If this does not work out and you were Art Rooney, I'm not asking what the realistic situation is, because the realistic answer is boring. And honestly, it's the wrong answer, because it's not hot at all. There's no worries at all. But if you're Art Rooney and this does not work out and Russ sinks the ship, and Russ was the wrong dock to tie your boat to as heavily as Mike Tomlin has tied his boat to Russell Wilson, what's your level of concern in your head coach if you are Art Rooney? Not asking what Art Rooney is thinking, but if you are Art Rooney.
If I am Art Rooney, I'm looking at my head coach and saying, man, you have botched the most important position in our sport ever since Ben Roethlisberger retired. And there are some that believe he was forced to retire. So you forced him into this to get to the other side, and the grass has not been greener because your quarterback play has been horrible. And when you finally have 2 quarterbacks that are at the very least league average, you decide not to decide in the first half of a season where you needed to make your bread in the first half of the season. If I'm Art Rooney and I see him botch this and it doesn't work out, and the Steelers make this mistake and they lose, Justin Fields because they lost his trust and Russell Wilson isn't the guy, I look at Tomlin and I say, listen, you're for sure not getting another contract, and you'll be lucky to make it out of this season.
Yes.
But I'm not Art Rooney, and we all know that's not how he's going to handle it.
We all know what the situation will be. We all know that there is never a hot seat for Mike Tomlin. There never will be. But if we're going to speak in terms of what should be, I mean, I think Mike Tomlin's one of the best head coaches in football. I think he is incredibly undervalued a lot of the time in the eyes of many fans. I also think that he makes the most ridiculous decisions, because he makes a decision 4 months ago and ties himself to that decision, and he does it all the time. So I agree with you. I mean, if this did not work out and I'm Art Rooney, I'm looking Mike T in the eyes and saying, dude, you did this. You screwed this up. And I would say, I mean, Mike Tomlin has deserved that last shot. He has deserved that last shot. So I would tell him, you have 1 season to fix it, but that season's not looking good. It's over. That's how I would handle the situation. That's not how the situation's going to be handled, but that's how I would handle the situation. All right. Before we get into overreactions, let's talk about the other biggest news of the day here, because this is not it. I mean, this was the craziest day of the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hell of a day. Fantastic. I mean, we're talking the beginning of Brandon Ayuk situation here, where we currently stand. This is a good week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to be a fun one, guys. Davante Adams heads to the Jets. That's where this all started. That's where this day took off from. The Jets landed the guy. They got their wide receiver. Davante Adams does not care. I wrote a story 33 minutes before this news broke. The title of the story, just so I don't get it, I don't want to botch it on you guys. I don't want to lie to you and give you the wrong one. Steelers gain more ground in Davante Adams' race. You want to know what that story is about? How the New York Jets stink, how the New Orleans Saints stink, and how if Davante Adams has to pick between two teams right now, being the Buffalo Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have the upper hand because not even the Bills looked that good last night. And if it wasn't for 290 yards worth of penalties or whatever it was, they aren't going to win that game. So you look at that and you say, the Steelers got to have an upper hand. Nope. The Jets send a third-round pick that people are going to say, oh, is a second-round pick. It's not going to be a second-round pick. It is. Did you see the terms of this trade? And
yeah,
what
the conditions are pretty ridiculous.
I mean, what are you doing there? If he's an all-pro, that's not going to happen. He's missed half the season. And the Jets make it to the Super Bowl, and he's on the active roster. If he's not on the active roster and the Jets make it to the AFC Championship game, how did we get here? Did the entire AFC just fall off a ship? I don't know what happened. It's going to be a third-round pick, and they took on his entire contract, which that part questionable. Next year, his cap hit is $36 million for the Jets, and they got to figure something out with that. Otherwise, they're taking on $36 million to go figure out what they're going to do with a 34-year-old wide receiver. That's a tough situation to be in. He's in New York. I'm not upset with the Pittsburgh Steelers going out there, not giving up a third-round pick and not taking on the entire cap situation that Davante Adams comes with. If you were going to figure out the cap situation, great, but they didn't, and it didn't seem like they were ever going to. So I'm okay. I'm not going to sit here and complain about that situation. So what comes next? I got two names for you. Mike Williams and DeAndre Hopkins. And I'll ask you, because I asked you before the show, or I ran it by you before the show. You weren't too into one of them. But I'm going to ask you, between those two, which one do you think is more realistic for the Pittsburgh Steelers as we sit here today? Because Mike Williams is on the block. That's already been reported. And DeAndre Hopkins is most likely on the block. I mean, everybody's talking about him going places, and I have a hard time believing the 1-4 Tennessee Titans or the 1-5 Tennessee Titans are sitting there going, it's all right, man. Will Levis sucks, but we're going to figure this out. And D-Hop, that's the one. Calvin Ridley's already complained about not enough targets, but we're going to give more to D-Hop early in the game because that'll solve things. Mike Williams, DeAndre Hopkins seem to be the next two for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do you put any of them in the realm of possibilities in Pittsburgh over the next, 2.5 weeks?
Yeah, I got two answers for you here. What's more likely, even though that's a Thursday segment, and what do I want to see more? What's more likely is Mike Williams, because he's already on the trade block. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It was the Jets who had that video where the guy's key card didn't work. I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Williams' key card doesn't work today, because the second they got Davante Adams, they were done with Mike Williams. Not to mention the fact that Mike Williams was slated and scheduled to have a visit with the Pittsburgh Steelers this past summer. So who is more likely? I'd say that goes to Mike Williams. Who do I want to see more? I think they need a guy like DeAndre Hopkins more than they need a guy like Mike Williams. Williams has the injury history. Williams is more of a straight line, deep ball type of guy. I think DeAndre Hopkins gives you a little bit more when it comes to the intermediate area of the field. And I think that's what the Steelers are missing. They have their deep ball guy in George Pickens. They need somebody that can operate between the hash marks and operate in that intermediate and short area of the field. I think that's Hopkins more than it's Mike Williams.
I agree. And to be honest with you, like, they brought in Mike Williams. I get it. But I believe if DeAndre Hopkins is available, the Pittsburgh Steelers make some phone calls and they say, why not? Like, why would we not shoot for the stars? They've shot for the stars this entire time. They went after Brandon Ayuk and rode that right into the sunset. They said, screw it. We're going until this thing blows up. And it blew up right before the season. And they ended up with Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson and Scotty Miller coming off the bench with a hurt Roman Wilson. That's what they ended up with. Then they said, screw it, we're going after Davante. Even if everybody is fully aware that he wants to be in New York and that New York wants him, we're going after Davante. Why would you not go after D-Hop? Why would you not shoot for the stars? It feels like Mike Williams is a settle move, and the Steelers are not into settle. So I agree with you. I think Mike Williams right now is the most realistic one, but I would not be surprised if that changes to DeAndre Hopkins as we approach November 5th, because once he becomes officially available, there will be those moves. And it's going to happen fast. I mean, that's how this all goes down. Amari Cooper was on the block for like a day and a half, and then boom, trade to the Buffalo Bills. And I mean, to be honest, the Steelers should have called Cleveland. That's what they should have said. Look it, guys. We know you don't even care that we're the Steelers. You would trade them to us because you guys are that bad right now. Let's make a move. That's what they should have did. But I think D-Hop becomes realistic as we get closer to November 5th because the Titans are going to give up. They've already given up. They're going to jump ship. They don't have an offensive line. Their running back's hurt. Their quarterback is terrible. I mean, we're only weeks away, if that, from Mason Rudolph being the starting quarterback of the Tennessee Titans. Their head coach is probably already on the hot seat, and he's got way too many wide receivers to deal with. Do you even remember Tyler Boyd's there? Because nobody else does. Nobody else remembers that Tyler Boyd is there. That's how bad they are. I think D-Hop will become available, and I'd be willing to give up, honestly, whatever. Like, you want a 3rd round pick for D-Hop? Sure. Here you go. Let's just get this over with and get some guys to Pittsburgh. Do you think Van Jefferson's stat line increases with Russell Wilson on the field?
Van Jefferson's stat line increases? No, I don't think Van Jefferson's. Do you know who I do think has a better stat line because Russell Wilson's on the field? Calvin Austin. Because from day one, Calvin Austin and Russell Wilson have been like big bro, little bro. And I think Russ really likes Calvin. And I think he's going to find him more often than Justin was able to, just because I think he's going to demand it more.
Do you think George Pickens' stat lines increase with Russell Wilson?
I mean, over the last couple of weeks, it's not like his stat lines have been that impressive. So I think that's not a high bar to clear. But I don't think it, and nothing substantial, because at the end of the day, I don't think Russell Wilson is cooked, but I also don't think that he gives you a substantial upgrade over Justin Fields, even in the pass game. So I don't think anything is going to change materially between last week and this week for certain receivers.
We'll see. I agree with you on all of them, especially the first one. But I kind of feel bad with all the bad ways we're talking about the first one. I feel like it's every week. It's just catching strays. Strays deserved. Catching strays.
He just made all of his catches after practice and training camp. It just doesn't have any left in the tank, I guess. I don't
know. Oh, gosh. All right, guys. With that said, we're going to take a break before we dive into overreactions. We'll leave it with that stray. We'll be back. First, we got a quick word from our boys over at Game Time. Basketball season is right around the corner, and there are few live events that make you feel as in the moment, and I get it, football season is probably one of them, where you feel like you're there, you're part of the action. Well, let me tell you about Game Time and how Game Time has this new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I decided to jump on and see what Pittsburgh Steelers versus New York Jets tickets look like in primetime. And it took me 3 seats before they hit me with a great deal, telling me that not only are these probably the cheapest, but for the view, they may be the best deal that anybody can offer. Let me walk you through a couple of really nice things about Game Time. First, priority. Game Time Picks curates to make it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. They give you all-in pricing, which means that this feature shows you the total upfront cost with no surprise fees at checkout, because that is the absolute worst thing about buying tickets. They give you seat views because nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to show up not knowing what their view of the stadium is going to look like. The lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference, and Game Time ticket coverage, which means that your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code ALLSTEELERS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code ALLSTEELERS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Shout out our boys over at Game Time. While we're on, Atlanta Falcons, Super Bowl. The Jaguars approved a $1.4 billion renovation, which is pretty nuts. And Tom Brady's about to be a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. Bad time for Davante Adams to get out of there, huh? That stinks. But shout out to Tom Brady Shout out to TB12 going to Vegas. No income tax in Vegas. So wonder why he picked that one. Wonder why he picked that one. Yeah, who would have thought? All right. It's that time of week again. We're diving into Overreaction Tuesdays. Want to give a shout out to Parker, who hit us with some tunes. We're working on them. We're trying to come up with a little custom video to put over the tunes to play before we get in here. But they were awesome. Very appreciative of them. Very appreciative that you sent them our way. We'll get cracking on those, and we'll hopefully have them. The goal is next week is to release these bad boys to the world next Overreaction Tuesday. But this week, we'll go steady. We'll go calm in the midst of chaos because the Pittsburgh Steelers, man, they lit the world on fire today. And I'm excited for these ones. Nick, I'm going to toss it to you. It's Overreaction Tuesday, week 3, or I guess episode 3, week 7. And, man, I'm hoping for some good ones. Let's get them kicking. Nick, I'm tossing it to you.
Yeah, you got 3 from me, and you got 5 from the listener side of things, including one that was just submitted live here on All Steelers Talk on YouTube. But let's start with mine here. First and foremost, Davante Jackson had his 3rd interception of the season already on Sunday. Overreaction or not, I'll let you be the judge. He has been the better cornerback between him and Joey Porter Jr. to this point.
No, overreaction. There's a reason that Davante Jackson gets his hands on the football, and that's because, well, quarterbacks are throwing it to Davante Jackson, but they're not throwing it to Joey Porter Jr. Why? Because they will not allow Joey Porter Jr. to come anywhere near a football. No way. I'm saying it's the other way around here. Davante Jackson, phenomenal, stud. I mean, we were incredibly high on 2 people all summer long, Deshaun Elliott and Davante Jackson. Those were going to be the 2 biggest additions the Pittsburgh Steelers made in 2024. Both of them are very, very true at this point in the year. I get it. He's coming up with INTs. I believe that's his 3rd of the season. That's a great time for Davante Jackson. Huge pickup for the Steelers. Joey Porter Jr. has got a shot to be one of the top 5 corners in the league by the end of the season right now. And I mean, you look at the stats, you look at what he's done, you look at what wide receivers are not able to do with him out there. Drake London's having a season, my friend. Did absolutely nothing against Pittsburgh Steelers. You keep going down the line there.
I was going to give you my best ESPN 30 for 30 voice. What if I told you that Davante Jackson has been targeted 27 times and Joey Porter has been targeted 23 times? So really, it's only a difference of 4.
No. It's what's the percentage, the catch percentage of those? What are they allowing? Because that's important here. That's important.
I don't have the percentages, but Davante Jackson has allowed 15 of 27. Joey Porter Jr. has allowed 16 of 23, according to PFF.
Nah, PFF's wrong.
Okay.
PFF's wrong. I'm going Joey Porter Jr. I think Davante Jackson's incredible. I think Joey Porter Jr. there's a reason he's very quiet right now. I'll say that.
Let's go over to the second one here. The Steelers, with their quarterback decision today, just ended any hope that they had of re-signing Justin Fields in the summer.
That is not an overreaction as we sit here today. Now, things could change. That could become an overreaction in 2 weeks, and we could have a totally different outlook on this. And if I had to predict what does next reactions look like, I would imagine one of them is the Pittsburgh Steelers made an awful decision and they will go back to Justin Fields. And there's a prediction, there's a guess that that's coming. But right now, where we sit here currently, Tuesday, October 15th, and the Steelers are not officially even naming Russell Wilson the quarterback, I could tell you it is not an overreaction. Justin Fields' time in Pittsburgh and the Steel City has come to a close as a starter currently where we stand, and that ends also his time re-signing, or the conversation of him re-signing with the Steelers after the season. It looked great. There was a lot of fun. We had some great times. You know what they say, it's about the friends you make along the way, and we made lots of them. It's been a really, really great time. The Steelers have ended that time. I don't think there's any chance. I'm going to say that is not an overreaction as we sit here today, October 14th.
Well, we're 1-1. 15th. Yeah, we're 1-1 through 2. So let's see if you can break the tie with my final overreaction before we go to the listeners. My last one of the day: the Steelers must win both of the next 2 weeks, or they're not making the playoffs this season.
Man, you hit me with a good one here to end it. You got
They
to
need to be
fit.
6-2.
They'd have to be 6-2. The Jets and the Giants. If you lose to the Giants, I think you're in trouble. I do think the Steelers are in trouble. If you lose to the Jets, here's my thing with the Jets, okay? They're probably going to lose to the Jets because it's just a rule of elimination. That's all it is. That's all it is. It is the system. This is the matrix, okay? There are things, there are processes. Things happen at certain times. The New York Jets avoided their new coach bump. They avoided it. I think on purpose. I think they lost that game on purpose to avoid the bump. Why? So that they could get the new wide receiver best friends with the quarterback bump that nobody saw coming. Genius. Absolute geniuses. And you're telling me Aaron Rodgers doesn't think of these things? No, he knew exactly what he was doing. Oh, Mike Williams ran the wrong route. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. You were saving this. You knew what was coming. The Jets are getting the new wide receiver best friend with the quarterback bump. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't know if you can get a new quarterback bump when you're winning. I don't know if that's allowed to happen. I've never seen that happen. I've never seen a team win football games, be 4-2, and say, you want to know what we need? The new quarterback bump. What? So I don't know. I almost feel like it's reverse psychology here. The Pittsburgh Steelers immediately lost themselves a game because they eliminated their bump. And that bump would have been a good bump if you used it correctly. They didn't use it correctly. I think the new wide receiver best friends with the quarterback bump is stronger than the winning already changing quarterbacks bump. I'm going the Pittsburgh Steelers lose that one. And therefore, their season's over? No, I don't think so. I think it's an overreaction. I think you're going to lose to the bump, and then you're going to come back. You're going to beat the Giants. And then from there, this is classic Mike Tomlin football. That's exactly where he wants to be. He wants to be 5-3 heading into the bye week, come off the bye week, lose to the Commanders, and let's go. Let's party, baby. Let's add a little salt to this margarita as we explode into the back half. That's what Mike Tomlin's all juiced up for. I still think they make the playoffs, even if they don't win these two. I don't expect them to win these two. And I just think that's because Mike Tomlin this is what he wants. He wants to finish 10-7 and have everybody sweating in week 16, 17, and 18 because that's what he just thrives off it. That's what he does. So I'm going to say overreaction where we currently stand.
All right, 2-1 in favor of overreactions. Let's go over to the listeners and start with Steven, who you can tell he got this one in early because he said if they don't fight hard to get Davante, which they didn't get Davante, they're going to be screwed going into the second half of the season. So overreaction or not, because they didn't get Davante, they are screwed in the back half.
Screwed. Screwed's a big word. Strong word there. Strong word. They are screwed. I'll tell you this. The Steelers have not been screwed so far with lack of wide receiver depth. We don't know what's going to happen with Russell Wilson. At some point, you got to think George Pickens is going to be good again, right? Like you gotta hope that that's going to go down. Pat Freiermuth hasn't exploded. You got to anticipate that's going to happen. And I mean, if Najee Harris keeps doing what Najee Harris is doing, great. But the Steelers are going to get healthy. I think that's the biggest factor here. At some point, they're going to get healthy. If they stay healthy, once they get there, I'm not going to say screwed. I think the Steelers will be okay. I look at this and say simply, they need wide receiver help. Davante Adams was not it, unfortunately. Didn't really have a strong sense that was going to happen anyways. You know, I kept that at a 70, and that was barely cracking the surface of confident. I look at this and saying they're not screwed. Overreaction. I mean, they've done it with less. You got to remember the 8-8 season with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph. Do we remember those wide receivers? Because it's hard to remember. Tevin Jones was on that team. Do you remember who that is? No, nobody does. Nobody does. Exactly. Shout out Dante Moncrief.
Let's go over to Mitch, who says Najee Harris, following his first 100-yard rushing game of the season, is the next Barry Sanders. Overreaction or not?
Oh, that one's bad. That one's a bad one. I mean, I appreciate it, but that one I almost choked on my own laugh there. That's an overreaction. That's the biggest overreaction we've had on this show. And we've had TJ Watt as a bust. We've had TJ Watt is washed on this show. Najee Harris being Barry Sanders is a bigger overreaction. I don't even know where to go to justify that one. I just think I look at that and say, Barry Sanders is the greatest running back of all time. And then it's Najee Harris. Like in 4 generations, will people remember Najee Harris? Like, is that going to be a name we talk about? Or will that be, will our kids remember who Willie Parker is? Probably not. Will our great grandkids know who Najee Harris is? Probably not. But they'll know who Barry Sanders is. Otherwise, they will be sleeping in the garage because that's how the Strack Pines do it. So I'm going to go overreaction. Massive overreaction.
All right, so we're 4-1 overreactions. I think this is the most actual overreactions that we've gotten so far. So I like that. Let's go over to Zach, and this one might go the other direction. Deshaun Elliott is the best signing the Steelers made this summer.
That is not an overreaction. That's the easiest yes you'll get from me. Easy. I think Deshaun Elliott is the second best defensive player on the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. That's where I mean, over Cam Hayward and over Minkah Fitzpatrick. Dude is a menace. He is an absolute monster. I had somebody tag me or tweet at me something after I said how great that signing was that said, hey, like, he gave up 2 touchdowns last week. And I'm like, I don't even care. He's still that good. Like, he is that good. Everybody's allowed to have a bad game. He is that good. Deshaun Elliott is the best signing they've made in, I don't know, when was the last great signing the Pittsburgh Steelers made? I can't on defense. I can't even put that into, I don't even know who would be on that list.
Did they trade for Joe Hayden or did they sign Joe Hayden?
They saw, I guess since Joe Hayden. It would be since Joe Hayden. That's where Deshaun Elliott sits. He's the best signing the Pittsburgh Steelers have made defensively since Joe Hayden. That's how good he is. Not an overreaction. Good one.
All right. Let's go to Samuel, who says, with the Steelers O-line injuries, 32 will be the highest points the Steelers score in a regular season game.
Oh, I like that one. I like that one a lot. I'm going to say you got me thinking on this because 32, I mean, you get one more touch. You take away a field goal, you get a touchdown instead. You're looking at 30, 35. That's a possibility, but they've only done it once. They've scored over 30 points in 48 games or something like that. 57 games is crazy times. Crazy what that stat is. I'm going not an overreaction. And I could justify it by saying scoring in the NFL is down if you're not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Steelers they got some hiccups, man. I think, Justin, I think 32 is a great game. And if you could do it consistently, awesome. But if you can do 27 consistently, that's awesome too. So I'm going to say 32 is the highest they will score. I'm going to say that's not an overreaction. I might be talking a little bit with my gut on that one, but I'm going to say that's not an overreaction.
All right, well, we're at 4-3. This started off drastic and has kind of bounced back. I got 2 more that have jumped in here in the live. Let's see if the not overreactions, the level-headed takes, can take over here before we go to the questions. Vibing with the dogs. This is going to be a good one.
Yes.
Overreaction Tuesday. Tomlin has a losing season after switching to Russell Wilson.
That is an overreaction. There's an argument to be made of they just messed up and now you can't go back. And I think that snowball could have some effect. I think it could get rolling. I think you could look at this and say you lose 2 going into the bye week. You come out of the bye week. You play a really good Commanders team. Now you're dropping 0-3 with Russell Wilson. You can't go back to Justin. You've already made the commitment to Russell Wilson. What are you going to do? You're going to go back now, kill kill Justin's confidence. That's not good. I look at this and say there is a snowball, but it's Mike Tomlin. This is what he does. Russell Wilson wins football games. Let's not act like he doesn't win football games. He's won football games in the past. I look at this and say that's an overreaction. The defense is too good. The running game just had an explosive day, and Russ is not terrible. I'm not saying that he's the right call here, but he's not terrible. So I'm going to say overreaction.
All right, well, that means the overreactions have clinched it, but we do have one more here from Carl Spackler. It says, overreaction. TJ is the overall MVP right now in the NFL.
That is not an overreaction. TJ Watt takes over games all the time. I am not the only one who thinks that he should be in the MVP conversation. I mean, who you put? You're going to put Lamar in there? Definitely. Lamar looks unreal. You're going to put Lamar in there. You're going to put Patrick Mahomes in there because the Kansas City Chiefs are the Kansas City Chiefs, obviously. You're probably going to put, I don't know, who's the second best team in the NFL? Is it still, I don't even know. I don't even remember who I put in my
Minnesota.
Maybe Sam Darnold. You'd probably put Sam Darnold in that conversation. You have to put Sam Darnold in that conversation, but he's not gonna win it. I still think TJ has more consistency by the end of the season. It's an overreaction to say he will win the MVP. It is not an overreaction to say overall he is the MVP right now. The Pittsburgh Steelers are literally 4-2 because of him. They are 2-4 if TJ Watt does not exist. They probably lose to Vegas and they probably lose to Atlanta. I would say TJ Watt has handed them 2 wins. They are 4-2 because of it. TJ Watt is the overall MVP right now. I will say that's not an overreaction.
All righty. Well, we do have a bunch of questions to get to. So that is the end of Overreaction Tuesday, week 3. The overreactions take it by a final of 5-4. Got closer than I expected it though.
It did. Those are some good ones. We appreciate you. We'll be back next Tuesday to dive into the same thing, and this has been a blast, so let's keep them trucking. With that said, I know we got a lot of questions. We'll try to answer as many as we can before we head out of here. Nick, I'll toss it to you. What do we got?
As always, let's start with those that have contributed a little bit extra here with their questions and comments. Vibing with the Dogs leads off first, says, and people blamed Kenny Pickett for wanting a trade.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Kenny, the way I saw it, so I'll explain this from the reports or from what I have heard from sources throughout the process. And obviously nobody talks about Kenny anymore, but when it was going down, the second that Russ became like an interest for the Steelers, before they ever met with them or anything, I got a phone call saying that the Pittsburgh Steelers met with Kenny Pickett. They informed Kenny that they had interest in Russell Wilson, but at the same time, they were very interested in Kenny Pickett and making sure that Russ was just a very quality backup for him. Then they signed Russell Wilson and made the promise to Russ that he was going to be the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then they went to Kenny and said, hey, negotiations went differently, and we are going to likely give the job to Russ. He will be in pole position, as Mike Tomlin used all summer long, for the starting job. And Kenny dipped. So it's not the same situation with Justin, but it's still a tough one. And the way Mike Tomlin's going about this, man, he is definitely hanging some quarterbacks out to dry, and he just better hope that the 35-year-old makes up for it. That's all I got to say.
Vibin has a couple other comments that I'll run through really quickly. He says, one, excuse me, Justin's going to want to trade, and I wouldn't blame him. I'd check with both the Raiders and the Seahawks. And also, y'all know I don't like the kid, but we know it's going to be Russ. And when we fall to 4-4 heading into the bye, I'm going to laugh. Fire Tomlin.
I'm gonna stay impartial to my situation and where I stand in the quarterback battle. I think that there are arguments to be made on both sides, but I agree with everybody that once this starts going south, the Steelers have shot themselves in the foot and they have made a bad decision. You could have pushed this out a lot longer. You chose not to. Here we are. So the way we stand right now, the way we stand currently, I will hold off giving my opinion on, because I think there's an argument to be made, a logical argument for both sides here. But you're right. Once things start going south, it is on Tomlin 100%.
Let's jump down to Sean, who says Najee Harris has another 100-yard game. Is that an overreaction or not?
Against the Jets, I would say it's an overreaction simply because the Jets defense looks good. That being said, Ray Davis, who I stared at the face of on my fantasy app last night at 7:55, and said, man, you just know he's going to have the game and everybody's going to want him on the waiver wire on Tuesday. Just pick him up now, dude. Just pick him up now. Decided not to. And what'd he do? He had the game that everybody's going to want to pick him up on the waiver wire on Tuesday. And I stared him right in the face. So you never know. I'm going to say it's an overreaction simply because the Jets defense is very good. And if they remain good, Najee will get shut down. So I'm going to say overreaction, but a close overreaction.
Let's go down to Jose, who says, this, meaning the quarterback situation, is Jets type behavior. This is not the way to run a professional sports team.
It is a wild time. It is. Mike Tomlin has become one of the most dramatic coaches in the NFL. Let's not act like he has not. Over the years, it has become very much so dramatic in Pittsburgh. Very much so dramatic in Pittsburgh. And the decisions are very questionable from time to time. Again, I think there are logical arguments to make on Russ and Justin's side on who should start and what the Pittsburgh Steelers should do. But I don't disagree with you. This is not quiet, boring football, which is what the Pittsburgh Steelers would like to have happen. But man, I tell people all the time, couldn't imagine covering another team, dude, because it's got to be so boring. I get to cover the most interesting, nonstop craziness news, nonstop craziness organization in the league. And, you know, I'm grateful for it, but it is not what the Steelers want to be going on right now.
Let's go to the honest truth, who says, if Russ plays poorly, does it affect the players in the locker room and destroy the little bit of confidence Justin has built since being in the NFL?
Yes, 100%. That's the problem here. And Ben Roethlisberger said it on his show yesterday that, you know, that's what this move does, is it kills Justin's confidence. And now you can't go back to him and expect him to play with that same level of confidence that he had. Why? Because you already told him, dude, you don't even have a leash. It's so short. That's how bad this is. You don't get mistakes. You don't get room for growth. You get, I am either very good, excellent, perfect almost, or Russ is going to be the guy. It does certainly kill his confidence. And that's why I think it ends all conversations for the future, because the Pittsburgh Steelers made it very clear that Justin is a number 2 and they view him that way. And I wouldn't want to come back if I'm Justin. So I do. I think this kills his confidence, at least in Pittsburgh.
Let's go to Eddie the Great, who says, with today's trade news, do you think the boys play with a little bit of a chip on their shoulders and shut down Adams if he does come back from that hamstring injury?
Yeah, they're saying Adams is already going to play, so that's big. Again, you know, I think that this is a bigger boost for the Jets than it is for the Steelers. Now, the good part of this is it's the Jets, and you just never know. Maybe the Jets don't get boosts. Maybe the Jets don't ever get better. They are just the Jets, and that's a real possibility. But in the logic of the NFL, the Jets just gave themselves much more of a favor than the Steelers did. And this looks like more of a hiccup game for the Steelers. And we come back on Tuesday. This is pretty crazy. Why did this go down like this? Then it feels it'll be hey, Justin was the bad move and Russ was the guy, and we should have did this a long time ago. And I don't know. I look at this as not a chip on the shoulder, more so the Steelers might have screwed up in different news other than the Davante news, and they're not going to get them, or they're not going to get the win.
Let's go over to the honest truth again, who says, I feel with the way the offensive line is playing, Russ is going to get killed.
Yeah,
even with being the better pocket passer than Justin, does it really make that much of a difference if there's no pocket to actually pass from consistently? P.S. Love the show.
Appreciate you. Definitely appreciate you. I mean, yeah, that's got to be a worry for everybody, is Russ is going to get killed. And Mike Tomlin acknowledged it today that Russ can't run the way that Justin can. That's a massive concern. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. The caution all season long was, can Russ protect himself? Mike Tomlin could say as much as he wants. Russ looks like he showed he could protect himself. Russ is showing he could protect himself in practice with the second team against the practice squad. Not when Will McDonald is lining up across from Dan Moore and Broderick Jones saying there's a 99% chance I'm going to beat you right here. And then he does it. I think that's a different situation. I am very nervous for Russ's health in this. And if he does get hurt And if he does get beat up, the Steelers are right back to where they were and in a worse spot because they have now killed Justin's confidence and they lost Russell Wilson. And that's just the worst case scenario.
Let's go over to Deluxe Skittles, who says, with the Steelers losing out on all these wide receiver trades, who can we look at? With rumors starting back up for Darius Slayton, can you see us going for him?
Darius Slayton's not a bad one. It meets what the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for as a route runner. Like we said, Mike Williams is a name. DeAndre Hopkins will be a name. There will be more that emerge as we get closer to November 5th. I would imagine there are teams that just like jump ship, that are just like, screw it, give everybody up. We're done. The season's over. The Carolina Panthers are going to just start trading everybody because who cares? And there will be names to watch. The three right now, Darius Slayton's one of them for sure. Mike Williams, DeAndre Hopkins. I like Darius Slayton. I don't think he's the best answer. I think he's a clear-cut number 2, but he is a name. I think Romeo Doubs could be out there as well. I also think that Devondre Wicks, if he's healthy by the bye week, could also be a name to watch for the Steelers.
Before we go over to the non-contributing questions, which we'll try to get to as many as we can, let's go to No Coast Golf, who says contributing because apparently everybody is today.
We appreciate you. We appreciate everybody. Thank you, guys.
All right, let's jump into the other questions here, starting with Cody, who was in early, says, do you guys at times feel like Tomlin cares more about the defense than the offense? That's twice that they've missed on somebody and were quick to trade a wide receiver for a cornerback this offseason.
Different situation with the Deontay for Dante situation. That was first off season. It was a very fluid situation from what I've been told. The Steelers made the phone call. The Panthers were very responsive to the phone call, and they went from there. These other situations are more combative. Teams are a little bit more reserved. They're fighting other guys, other teams, other contract situations. It's very different than what went on. And at the end of the day, Omar makes these calls, not Mike Tomlin. So I wouldn't say that's on Mike T. You know, you could put a lot of blame on Mike T in a lot of different directions. The missing out on trades is an Omar Khan situation. He didn't get the job done. I'm not going to discredit him for this one because it was said from the beginning that Davante Adams wanted to go to the Jets and the Jets wanted to get Davante Adams. I felt like it was difficult for the Steelers to get in there. I thought they did a good job for the circumstances they were given, but I did have a hard time believing that the Jets weren't going to win this one at the end of the day.
Let's go over to Nat, who wants to know, how good is the Jets defensive front? Meaning, is this going to be a good ground game and pound, or where Najee runs as good as he did last week?
Yeah, got to give a shout out to Nat because she hit me up on Instagram on Sunday before the game, and I don't remember what the score. I think it was 30-14 was her score prediction. It was very close. It was crazy. So yeah, shout out to that. The Jets defensive front is very good. Very good. I mean, across the board, you got guys, whether it's Leonard Williams, Will McDonald is a stud. I thought he got good praise from Mike T today, deserved praise of the Steelers' favorite rushers out of that draft class were Nick Herbig and Will McDonald. And I think there's a part of me that felt the same way by the end of it. So yes, they are very strong across the front. CJ Mosley, I believe, is healthy. I'm not 100% on that one, but I believe he is healthy. That defense as a whole is just very good. And it's going to be a tough game for the running game. They're still going to rely on the running game, obviously, but it's going to be tough treading for Najee Harris and company.
Let's go over to Marlon, who says, is it time to admit that number one wide receivers don't want to come to Pittsburgh to block the majority of the time?
No. I look at anybody overreacting to this trade, and I'm not saying Marlon is or anybody else is. I'm just saying anybody in general. Anybody looking at it and just saying they didn't get Davante Adams, and that's because Davante didn't want to come to Pittsburgh. He probably didn't want to come to Pittsburgh over New York because the option was Aaron Rodgers, but there are guys that do. I mean, they're just chasing the wrong guys. That's where we are. They're just chasing the wrong guys. You know, Deontay wanted to be here. Deontay's a good wide receiver. I would imagine Cortland Sutton wanted to be here too, but the Denver Broncos weren't going to trade him. There are names out there that I believe do want to come to Pittsburgh. The blocking most of the time, yeah, not great. But I think George Pickens plays a bigger role into that. I think people are fed up with George's antics, and players outside hear about these things, obviously. And I think the quarterback situation makes it very difficult to where you're looking at it going, I don't know what the future is. Once you get those things settled, that changes. But it all starts with the quarterback. Until you get a quarterback in there that you know is the future, wide receivers aren't going to want to come here because they don't know who's throwing them the football a year or two from now.
Let's go over to Mystic Gaming. We'll answer a couple more here. Far look into the future, but is there a chance the Steelers go for Ashton Ginty? I feel like we get this question a lot, but
Yes.
we've been keeping our eye on the Boise State running back. Do you think if Najee doesn't resign, they would be able to get him, or do you think he's just going to go way too high in the draft?
Yeah, at this point, Ashton Ginty should go first in the draft. Like him and Travis Hunter are the only guys I'm 100% certain of. So I would say the Steelers probably aren't going to get a shot at him. If they did, you got to consider it. You got to consider it in Pittsburgh. I saw something that if he doesn't rush for 2,000 yards, he promised his team that he'd cut off his dreadlocks. So that's a dude who's got some serious free, and he made that promise before the season, and he's going to do it. So that's a guy who he's got the ultimate confidence. I like Ashton Ginty. I don't think he's going to make it to Pittsburgh, but I like him.
He has 1,200 yards so far through, I think, 5 games. Or 6 games, something like that. Absolutely unbelievable. Let's go over to AJ, who says, hey guys, I'm going to my first game this weekend since 2018. I got to see Ben and Patrick battle it out back in 2018. I'm assuming there are many places to get jerseys in Pittsburgh. AJ asked another question. Which jersey should I get between Boz and Highsmith?
Yeah. So, I mean, you could go literally anywhere around the stadium or to the stadium and get jerseys. They have the pro shop opened outside. I don't know if it's open every day. It might be though. But definitely what's the place in between them? It's back by the T station. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I just can't think of what it is.
I don't remember the name, but check that out. It's by the train station, or by the T station, which is the subway station. They'll have jerseys, but you could buy jerseys pretty much anywhere. Who to get? TJ Watt. You want the guys that you know are going to be here. TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Minka, Joey Porter. Joey Porter's a good one. That's my go-to right now. Keanu Benton would be a good one. Zach Frazier would be a great one, if we're going to be honest. Those would be my picks. And then, I mean, dude, Chris Boswell. Go get a Chris Boswell jersey. So those would be my picks.
Let's go over to No Coast Golf, who says, how about the Steelers just use their tight ends? They're talented, paid, and healthy.
Yeah, you would think, right? You think that's a good idea. That being said, okay, Justin Fields did throw a football 25 yards over Pat Fryermuth's head last week, and Pat was wide open. And if you go back and watch it, I was telling Nick before we jumped on here, I was watching the film last night. There is a play where Connor Hayward is standing on the R in the red zone of the Raiders game, standing on the R. There is nobody within the S or the E anywhere near him. They are 2 full letters away from Connor Hayward, and Justin Fields didn't see him. So they're open. They're just not getting the football. That's where we're at.
Let's go over to Dobby Has a Sock, who says, hey, Noah, you were on the Metcalf train for a while. Are you still pulling for that trade?
Yeah, I wrote about it the other day that DK Metcalf does not look happy. The Seattle Seahawks are sinking fast, and you got to think that they're ready to trade somebody. So why not? Why wouldn't the Pittsburgh Steelers say, DK Metcalf, come on over, pal. You know Russell Wilson. You speak with Russell Wilson all the time. Russ says that they talk almost weekly. That's a guy that you're willing to call. Why not? Why not make that phone call and get him over here? He's paid. He's under contract. Figure that part out eventually. But you were willing to do that with Brandon Ayuk. So what is the difference? I mean, I look at that one as that's got to be inching towards being the favorite. And the closer we get to November 5th with the Seahawks losing, the more realistic that's got to become.
Lifted Ones has been going to bat for Mike Tomlin this whole episode. Says, what happens if the Steelers lose in the playoffs, fire Tomlin, and then proceed to only win 5 games the following season because everybody underestimates the impact of Coach T?
I agree with that. And I agree with that 100%. You know, I'm a big Mike T supporter. I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers should put the guy in the hot seat ever. I believe that having winning seasons is very big, especially because it's very difficult to win a Super Bowl. I mean, there are franchises who have never won a Super Bowl, and you could say, well, this is Pittsburgh. We win Super Bowls. I mean, most franchises feel the same way, and they don't win Super Bowls right now. So unless you have a Patrick Mahomes, it's literally impossible to figure this out if you don't have a Patrick Mahomes right now. That's where we're at. I agree with you. I think losing Mike Tomlin leads to losing seasons and very difficult times. I would judge Mike Tomlin the way I judge quarterbacks. Until you can find a quarterback, you can't judge what he can do or can't do. And just like the quarterback, you couldn't judge the quarterback until you found an offensive coordinator. Well, all right, here's one. Now let's figure out the quarterback.
We got two quick ones and one philosophical one. Let's start with Nat, who says, Noah, do you think Tomlin already knows who's starting and just wants to wait till the very end to announce to confuse the Jets?
Yes, it's Russell Wilson. We all know it's Russell Wilson. We knew it was Russell Wilson yesterday. Here we are today. We know it's Russell Wilson today. It will be Russell Wilson. This is a fake quarterback competition. I mean, shout out to Mike T, man. He's consistent in everything, including his fake quarterback competitions. So shout out. But yeah, this is Russ.
Joe wants to know, what's the word on Alex Highsmith? Sounds like a good status update from Tomlin earlier today.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about Alex for a while, and I'm glad that Mike T finally made the announcement today. But I've been reporting it on here that, you know, week 7 is the guess for him. Week 7 was the, hey, we believe that we could get him ready for week 7 to return from the groin injury. Believe he will be out there this week for the Steelers. But yeah, it's looking good. Looking like he's coming back.
All right, now let's close this marathon of an episode with this from Thomas Madden. If they change the overtime rules to one player from each team, bare hand fights to the death at the 50-yard line, who are the Steelers nominating? I'm saying Broderick Jones.
Broderick's a good one. Bare hand fight to the death. I mean, I'll give you a list. Okay. Cam Hayward's on that list, obviously. Depending on who the other team puts out there, Minkah Fitzpatrick's on that list because Minka's a scrapper. It's, you know, he's a scary dude. Isaac Seumalo, because you're always going to put Isaac Seumalo out there. He is so scary, man. He is so terrifying. And then honestly, I'd probably put one of the Herbig brothers out there on that list as well, just because they're Hawaiian and that means they'd kill somebody. So I'd feel good about those ones. I'd go with Herbig, either of the Herbigs. I mean, Nate Herbig is a big teddy bear. I still think he'd kill somebody. Either of the Herbigs, Broderick Jones, Isaac Seumalo, Cam Hayward, Minkah Fitzpatrick. That would be my list. Maybe a Landon Roberts, but I was gonna
add.
Yeah, but once you know a Landon, like once you talk to a Landon as a person, you're like, yeah, dude, you're also just like a dad. You know, you're also just a dad from Texas who shows up in the overalls and jokes around, and you know what I mean. Like Isaac is Isaac. Like Isaac is the scary dude. If you walk by Isaac in the hallway, he doesn't look at you. He just looks straight and says nothing. And you're just like, okay, that was scary, man. What are we doing here? I don't know. And Cam's just massive. So, you know, you got to put Cam on that list. But I would say Landon is I might put TJ out there before Landon.
Oof. All right. Well, we'll see if you get any blowback from that. That's it for today's episode.
All right. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk, a loaded episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to find us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back tomorrow to recap where the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback competition currently stands after the first day of practice, along with maybe some more wide receiver news and what's going to happen by Sunday. Plus, it's Wednesday. So what's Wednesday? Power rankings. Very excited for them. With that said, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.